Hi, this is Steve Siebold, and we're here at the Bona Allen Mansion outside of Atlanta. And I'm here today with Shin, who is one of the top people in World Financial Group. John and I have known each other for many years. He's one of the best guys in the business. And John, thanks for coming down.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background before you got into WFG?
You know, my background, wow. Well, first of all, my parents came from Korea, and so I am of Asian descent. And I say that because it's hard to tell nowadays, right? You don't know, right?
Sure.
And so, and we came from South Korea, to be very specific. So some people that watch the news may think, hey, wait a second. Hey, don't you guys the ones
that... He's that guy with the rockets.
Yeah, he's got the big bombs. You don't like Americans. I'm like, no, we came from South Korea, okay? And even if we were from North Korea, I'd still tell you we're from South Korea.
Sure, exactly, I hear you.
But my parents were, they always said, they come to this country and, we wonder, like, why did we come to this country? What was their purpose? And their purpose was basically for their children to get an education. And I think most Asian people, not all, but most Asian families, the traditional Asian families, want their children to become doctors or lawyers, right? And so to have some sort of a professional background. And so I had no choice. I had to go to law school or medical school. And me and blood and the sight of, germs and all that really doesn't work for me. So I had to go to law school. So everything I did was pretty much about going to law school. I went to law school, is where I met my wife. And then in 1994 is when we got married. And it took her, after we got married, she got involved in a business, right? In the financial industry, but I didn't even know she was doing that. I mean, she was kind of doing this thing on the side, and then it took her almost a year to come out and tell me, "Hey, I'm involved in this other thing, and I'm making some money. I wanted to show you." And I said, "Oh, well, how much money have you made?" And she made, a little bit of money, but it was. And I was thinking to myself, well, that's not bad, if we both made that kind of money, right, we could pay off our student loans even faster. But what she was doing didn't really resonate with me because I didn't like finance. I didn't like money. Probably one of the few Asian kids who didn't do well in math. And so I didn't like to be anything with, I really thought that financial were designed for smart people, and I was not one of those really smart Asian kids. I took the SAT, the old SAT grading system. I think if you went in there and did the Scantron with your number 2 pencil, some of the millennials are going, what's a Scantron?
Exactly. Right?
What's a number 2 pencil? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you just went in there and did that, you walked out, wouldn't even take an exam without even bubbling anything in, you got 400.
Right. I was counting on that 400.
Yeah, exactly. Right? You got 400. You can't get anything less than that.
Yeah.
And the high score was 1600.
Right.
And so my two scores, I got a combined score of 640. So that kind of gives you an idea, my intellectual ability of all this stuff they were testing me in. And I wasn't a very good test taker, And so I was always interested in learning about money, but I just didn't think that's something that I could actually ever learn.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Well, they correlated intelligence to that back then. And of course, it's not true. It's been disproven.
Right?
Sure, but back then it was different.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, my upbringing was pretty rough too, because number one, I didn't have a whole lot of friends. I lived in a community where there was virtually, it was 99.9999% Caucasians. And I was the only, that 0.00001 was my sister and I, right? And so it was interesting because I didn't have friends because it was hard to communicate with them, right? And in fact, my 4th grade teacher called in my parents and sat down with my parents and said, look, we think that maybe your son has a learning disability. And so, we'd like to put him in these other special classes. And so they put me in these special classes because my parents didn't know any better. So they thought, well, maybe we should put him in this class. Maybe he does need extra training because we can't teach him anything either, right? Because they're working 2 jobs to make ends meet. So I'm in these special classes and I started to realize that I don't think I should be in here, because I don't think I'm like these other kids, And so my mother finally got me a tutor and to even help me more at home. And the tutor came in and started tutoring me and started to realize that I didn't have a learning disability. So when they brought in my parents basically said, look, your son doesn't have a learning disability, but your son has an understanding of English. he doesn't understand English, and that's his problem right now. He needs to learn English. Because I would read a paragraph, and they said, what did you read? And I'm like, I don't know. Because I didn't understand the vocabulary. I didn't know the verbs. I didn't know what it meant to run, right? And so I would pronounce it and read it, but I didn't know what it actually meant. So how do you tell somebody what it means if you don't even know what the word means? So I had a pretty rough upbringing, right? Bully, the whole 9 yards. And then to sit there and think that, to top all that I didn't really know about money, I thought my wife was completely crazy to do this, but she got involved, and it took her about a year to convince me to go check it out. And she even tricked me to check it out, because she told me to go to a big convention, or she actually told me to go to Vegas. And I said, of course, let's go. We go to Vegas, and I find out in Vegas that there was a big convention.
So, just by chance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what a coincidence.
Yeah, exactly, right? So we're at the convention, and back then I think it started on Wednesday. So it was a Wednesday, Thursday workshop, and then it was a Friday night gala and a Saturday all day, like a main event type deal. So Wednesday and Thursday, I didn't even go to the workshops. And on Friday was the big awards gala, and I actually went to that. Mainly, not because I wanted to, because at this point I'd run out of gambling money and all my credit cards were maxed out, and I had to find my wife so I can actually find some, get her cards and cash and to eat.
Right.
And so she says, well, if I'm going to give you all this, you need to go to the meetings now. And so I went, and it was the best thing that she had ever done. I actually went to the convention, came back, and 2 weeks later I quit my job. It was a life-changing event, and thank God she did what she did. Because our family and the generations to come will remember that day, that moment, that hotel at Bally's in Las Vegas. So, so that's how we got started in the mid-90s. And so,
how long did it take you to become successful? And say successful, maybe $75,000 a year, something like that?
Oh, we made that in the first year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fast.
Yeah. So first year, because, when you believe in something, you have no problem talking to people about it, right?
Sure.
It's interesting when people say, well, I don't want to talk to this person. I don't want to talk to my friends and family about it.
Sure.
Well, that's because you don't believe in what you do, right? Because if you believe in something, then you would tell everybody about it. I mean, if you had the cure for cancer, right? If you had the cure for cancer and you had a little potion and they take some cancer cells and put it under a petri dish, under a microscope, and you begin to see after you put that special potion that the cells begin to mutate, and all of a sudden you found the cure for cancer. Right. You find out that your aunt has cancer now. You're not going to say, well, I don't want to tell my family about this because I don't do business with my family and let your family members suffer and die, right? And so today, I think that there's financial cancer. There's people struggling financially. They're in debt. They have loans, student loans. And so if I have a way to help them with those things, helping get them out of debt and get them financially more literate, then I'm going to talk to everybody about it. So, yeah.
Well, what do you think has been the secret to your success?
That's one of the questions that everybody asks, right? What is the secret? And so I think the main secret, it starts with dreams, right? And you got to have big, big dreams, because most people, they have dreams, but the dreams just aren't big enough, right? So, they need to increase their capacity and increase their mind, because people don't really know how big their dreams are, right? Until you start to associate with other people and get curious about how other people live, right? And what's really out there. Sure. But once you have those big dreams, there's a saying which says, man, your dreams have to be so big that your brains have stretch marks on them, right? And so you got to dream big. But then that's great. You can dream. But if you don't do anything, what's the next thing after dream is you got to have a burning desire. Like, how bad do you want it, right? I mean, Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich, the first chapter, he says that you got to have a burning desire, not just a desire, but a burning desire to achieve it, right?
Right.
And so, I talk about TFA, and a lot of people say TFA, there might be it's an acronym for something else. But for me, what TFA stands for is your thoughts, right? So, if your thoughts will then begin to affect your feelings, which is F, right? And then whatever you think about affects your feelings, and how you feel is how you act, which is A, right? And then if you start to act on it, then you get the results.
Sure.
So it all starts with having that dream first, right? And then that burning desire, which is your feeling, and then you got to act on it, right? So Do
you think that's something that people can be taught, or is it something that you're born with, that burning desire?
I think both. Part of it, I think, is you're born with it, right? But at the same time, I think it has to do with programming. Who did you associate with?
Sure.
Your parents. Your upbringing. And so if your parents don't have big dreams, right? So they're going to tell you that, hey, these are the cards that were dealt to us. This is the way we live. But the thing is that all those things that have been programmed, the good news is that it's not permanent. Right? And that's the good news, right?
Sure.
So your capacity is not permanent. So it's interesting how some people can multitask and they have high levels of capacity. Some people have low levels of capacity and some people have moderate, right? How is it that one person, like some people will say, John, you're an animal, you're a beast, you don't sleep, and you're all over the place. I've been watching you on social media, you're all over. And so they say, you're not even human, you must be a robot, right? It's because I've got high capacity, right? Just like you, Steve, right? You're a beast, right? I mean, you're just you're unstoppable.
I've been called lots of things.
Yeah, but I mean, you're a beast in a good way because you're never going to be you're never going to slow down. And people say, well, when are you going to stop worrying, Steve? Right?
Yeah.
Or John, when are you going to stop? Yeah, exactly.
Just like you, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? It's like, I think most people die, right, prematurely because they don't have purpose in their life. Right? It isn't just about the money.
Sure.
Right? Because we all know that there's a lot of rich people with a lot of money, but they're not happy.
True.
And then there's a lot of broke people in these underdeveloped or developing countries that have virtually nothing. Right? And yet they're happy as you can ever imagine. I mean, you can imagine. So we know that money isn't going to make you happy.
Right.
But it's what's that calling of yours, right? What is it? Mark Twain said the 2 best days of your life, right, is the day you were born. And the second day is to find out, and the second is why you were born, right? To know your purpose. And so once you figure those 2 things out.
Sure.
And I think I know what my calling is. My calling is to influence people. It's to get them to reach their peak potential, right? What is their maximum capacity, right? So I think that people right now need to understand that wherever they are today, they can get there. But it's also about who do they associate with, right? And what books are they reading, right? Have they read the 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class, right? Because that is a must read, I mean, there's so many things that are in that book that if people actually applied those things, again, it's another thing to just read those principles, but do they apply it every single day?
Sure.
They work at it. Do they develop those skills?
If someone's looking at this opportunity, John, and they have other opportunities, why would you suggest that they choose WFG?
I think, so John Maxwell said that you have to love what you do and do what you love. And WFG may not be the best company for everybody, okay? Because for whatever reason, some people, we need to have a doctor. Somebody's got to be a doctor, right? Somebody has to be the lawyer. We need to have people developing robotics and people finding cures for diseases. So this isn't for everybody, but once you get in here, if you feel like this is the right opportunity for you, then do it, right? And Napoleon Hill says, burn those bridges,
Sure.
Ray Parker Jr., I was talking to Ray Parker Jr. one time, the guy who created the song, Who You Gonna Call?
Right.
Ghostbusters, right? And he gave me an autograph, and he basically said, stick to plan A and kill plan B. Because that's what you got to do, right? So whether you do WFG or whether you do any other business, just go all out. That's it. You can't, there's that old proverb, right, where it says, if you chase 2 rabbits, you're going to lose them both, right? So if you try to have multiple businesses while you're starting in, you're not going to get anywhere. So find whatever that business is and go for it. One of the reasons that I decided to join WFG and what I love and what I'm passionate about is financial literacy, right? Because I don't think we can sit here and we can blame all the politicians, all the presidents of our country.
Sure.
And we can blame. We can be in the blame game. But at the end of the day, right, we have to take responsibility for where we're at. Right? And the choices that we make, right? So most people don't understand and they don't want to take responsibility. They love the blame game, right? But then what choices did you make, right? So you can't say that the president influenced you to make all those choices you made in your life, right? So I think that if they decide to come into WFG, because they would become more financially literate, okay? And they'll take actually some of the principles that we teach them, and they can apply it in whatever, you know what I mean? Like in any business, right? Most people don't even know the rule of 72.
Right.
Okay? Or most people don't even know the rule of 2400. Well, what's the rule of 2400? The rule of 2400 is if you're going to go buy a car or lease a car, and when you're leasing, people say, well, what's the interest rate? Well, when you're leasing a car, it's not an interest rate. It's called a money factor. So they'll give you a number. It's 0.00892. And then we're taught to move the decimal point over to the right. And if you move it over, you're like, oh, it's only 0.8, right? Percent. But it's not how it works with the money factors. You got to take that 0.00892, whatever that number is, and multiply that by 2400. And if you actually multiply it, you'll find out that your interest rates are double digits, right? But if it's 0.000892, next thing you know, it's less than 10%, right?
Right.
So people just don't know these kind of basic things.
Sure.
And so that's why I love WFG, because it's teaching people about how money works at the elementary level, okay? And I don't believe there's a company out there today that's literally teaching financial literacy to people at the elementary level. All the big wirehouses out there, all the big financial companies out there, they want to deal with people who already have the money, who are already in the top 20% of society. But what about the other 80% that have been overlooked by the typical financial industry?
Yeah, they never call you when you have no money.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know,
Merrill Lynch isn't on the phone.
Yeah, And again, it's nothing wrong with Merrill Lynch or Morgan Stanley.
Sure.
It's just that that's the market they carved out.
Right.
They carved out a niche. Just like if you're buying a Rolls Royce, you know, Rolls Royce is not going to be suitable for every person that's out there.
Sure.
But for the right person, the Rolls Royce perfect. Right. WFG is really designed for the middle class and for the lower income people.
Right.
And those people that have been overlooked, we'll talk to them.
Sure.
You know, so that's what I love WFG. Now, does that mean we're not going to talk to high net worth people either? No. We'll talk to them, so we just don't discriminate.
Right.
You know.
What do you say to the critics, John, that say WFG's a scam? You know, they go online and they type these things out and say it's a scam. Yeah. How do you address that?
It's interesting. We live in a world today, you know, and it's crazy that we live in this country, you know, the United States of America, that, you know, only in the United States of America can you go out there. In other countries, you couldn't say a word about your president, right? Or the prime minister, because we'll never know who you were after that, right? I mean, we don't even know where you're going to be.
Disappear.
You disappear pretty quickly, right? But it's unfortunate that we can say things and get away with it, right? In this country, and unfortunately, there's no policing even on the internet, right? And so people can say whatever they want about a person, a business, a thing, and everybody's got their opinions, right? Sure. And everything that you read in the internet, most of these are opinions of people, right? So if people say, well, you know, I Googled you, or I Googled your company and I found this, my question for them is, that was your excuse for you not to do the business, right? That you found your excuse, okay? But let me ask you a question. Did you Google the company you work for right now?
Right.
Did you, what kind of car do you drive? They say Toyota, right? And I said, well, did you type in Toyota sucks in Google and see what's in there? Did you type in BMW sucks and see what you find? Right. And so you're going to find, well, if you did, then why are you driving a BMW? Right? Why are you still driving a Toyota, right? Sure. Have you typed in Apple phones suck? And you find all this stuff about people saying, I would never buy an Apple phone. I would only go with what? Android. An Android, or, you know, some people still have the little flip phones, right? Exactly. You know, and so why do you still have that then? You know what I mean? Like, why do you own an Apple phone, right? But yet you still bought it. And so you can't sit there and say anything negative, because the fact is, I am an example of the fact that it works. Right? If a guy like me with a 1.9 GPA, where my parents petitioned my school and the school district to get a 2.0, because 1.9 you round that up to 2.0. If I have a 2.0 with a 640 on my SAT, right, and I have been paid not thousands or hundreds of thousands, but I've been paid millions and millions and millions of dollars in this company, how can you say it doesn't work? Or it's a scam, right? And I had one fellow who said to me, he says, He said to me, he goes, listen, man, he came to a meeting, he saw the opportunity, and we followed up with him. And he says, yeah, he says, listen, he says, I don't think this is for me. And I said, well, why would you say that? You haven't even given it a chance. And he said, yeah, I just, I honestly, I've talked to a few people and they said, you're going to scam me. I said, hey, listen, man, with all due respect. I said, scam you? I said, listen, you're broke. Okay, what am I going to scam from you, man?
Yeah, good point.
Are you with me on that, right? What am I going to possibly take from you? You're already broke, man.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, right? So I don't know what you think I'm going to take from you.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
And by the way, we're regulated by every state regulator. Does that make sense? The Department of Insurance. And we're regulated by the SEC, right? And FINRA. So if we were to do something wrong, we would have already been shut down, right? I mean, isn't it kind of, and it doesn't matter how big you are or who you think you are, what your name is. Guess what? You do something illegal in this industry, they're going to catch you.
Sure.
Right? They all come down sooner or later. And let's face it, when they look at our company, who are we owned by? We're owned by one of the biggest names in the industry, which is Transamerica. It dates back to the early 1900s. That was founded by A.P. Giannini. And who is A.P. Giannini? Well, if you look at A.P., he owned a bank, right, called Bank of Italy. And he owned Bank of Italy because his family had this, bank up in San Francisco. And after a while, they changed their name to Bank of America. So the founder of Transamerica Corporation is also the founder of Bank of America. He also lent money to HP to start up their company, right? Hewlett and Packard, right? These two guys. He also lent money to Walt Disney to start the very first motion picture movie that ever was made from Walt Disney Pictures, which is called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Had he not lent money to Walt Disney, we might not even have Disney Productions and all those wonderful movies that Disney's actually put out, right? He also lent money to the building of, it posted all the bonds for the building of the Golden Gate Bridge, right? And so during the toughest times, during the Great Depressions, while most people were suffering, small businesses and merchants were suffering, who came to those people's rescue? It was A.P. Giannini. And AP is the one who found Transamerica Corporation. And Transamerica now owns WFG, right? And Transamerica is now wholly owned by a major financial institution called Aegon, which has been around for over 250 years. So if we're such a scam, right, then why aren't people talking about AP Giannini and all the wonderful things he's done? And by the way, if you go to San Francisco, up at UC Berkeley, there's a museum dedicated to AP Giannini. So, yeah, I think it goes back to what people's perception is, and they talk to people who read things on the internet, and you can't believe 95% of the stuff that's on the internet. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so I tell people, be careful what you read. Be careful the source. We live in a world today. I mean, look at what's going on today, that what you read on the internet and what happened through social media, almost it affected, some people say, there's some allegations, right, that it affected the turnout of our election this past year.
Right.
Or a couple years ago.
Right.
So, yeah.